an unprecedented AI security incident. ChatGPT creator OpenAI says two of its models escaped controls and successfully hacked into another AI company. OpenAI says they are, the way they describe it, is responding accordingly. But they also say this involves state-of-the-art technology and is unprecedented. Let's get over to CNN's Claire Duffy for more on this. Claire, does not sound like good news.
Yeah, Kate, this kind of sounds like the plot of a sci-fi movie, but it is indeed happening in real life. This is the first major example that we've seen of an AI model independently conducting a hack outside of human control. And this is something that experts have been warning about. This is also driving some of these conversations that we've heard, including at the White House, about increasing controls and oversight of AI models because of the risk of exactly this sort of hack. Now, what happened here is that OpenAI was testing these models. It had lowered its normal safeguards in order to test these two models, which is GPT 5.6 Sol and also a new unreleased, more advanced model. It had lowered its safeguards because it thought it was testing in what is called a sandbox, a contained, essentially virtual lab. But when it gave these models a task to test their hacking capabilities, the models went to such great lengths to complete that task that it found vulnerabilities that allowed them to access the open internet outside of this controlled testing environment. They then hacked into Hugging Face, which is a platform that hosts all kinds of AI models. They used stolen credentials, stolen logins to navigate that platform. And ultimately, this hack was identified by Hugging Face in part because of artificial intelligence, which they used to shut it down. But this is a huge warning sign for this industry. In a statement, OpenAI said, "We consider this incident to be an unprecedented cyber incident involving state-of-the-art capabilities and are responding accordingly. We are sharing preliminary findings at this stage to help defenders understand what happened and to help calibrate on what models are now capable of." I think that is the real key here, is that models are now capable of conducting these kinds of hacks independently. The CEO of Hugging Face said that the company is working with OpenAI to figure out exactly what happened here. In a statement, he said that they suspected last week's cyber attack may have come from a frontier lab, given the sophistication of this agent. He also went on to say that we strongly believe there was no malicious intent on their part. It's quite mind-blowing that all of this happened autonomously. Kate, I think mind-blowing is one word that you could use for this. Terrifying, perhaps another word that could describe this situation.
Yeah, the statements from both the companies seem to be somewhat in awe that it actually happened, but it is terrifying. Because is there anything that they've said that will stop this from happening again?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you talk to safety experts within the industry, there is real concern that this sort of thing will start happening more frequently, and that the big model labs just don't have the capability to control these models that they need to have at this point. Now, OpenAI also said that it believes AI will be helpful in detecting these kinds of hacks. That is certainly what Hugging Face saw in their instance in this case. But I do think this is going to start another round of conversations about how we make sure that we have the controls in place so that AI isn't autonomously conducting these hacks outside of human control, Kate.
Yeah, and honestly, like how we figure it out is truly just these AI companies, because the rest of us are just sitting here along for the ride, very clearly. It's good. It's good to see you, Claire. Thank you so much.
If you're thinking about buying a new laptop or gaming console anytime soon, be prepared to dig deeper into your wallet. The price of many electronics is rising, and you can blame artificial intelligence for that. The AI boom is, as I'm sure you're well aware, driving huge demand for memory chips, and manufacturers frankly can't keep up, creating a shortage that is leaving consumers to pick up the tab. Well, Lisa Edichico is CNN's tech editor, and she's been having a look at this. This is a fascinating story. What type of electronics are we looking at here as likely seeing the biggest price hikes, and which I guess we should also ask will not be impacted at this point?
Yeah, Becky. So where we're seeing the biggest impact right now is in products like game consoles, laptops, tablets. Companies like Apple, Sony, and Nintendo and Microsoft have all announced price hikes to their products like iPads, the Nintendo Switch 2, the PlayStation 5, things like that. There are also Xbox price hikes expected for August. And that's because these are the products that use the most memory. We're talking about computers here that are rendering graphics and doing a lot of processing on board. And the types of products that we haven't seen affected yet are things that are a bit smaller and less processing intensive, like earbuds, smartwatches, the kinds of devices that really rely on the processing power in your phone or other devices to handle the heavy lifting. And so that's the good news for consumers. The silver lining in all of this is that not every product will be affected, and that according to some estimates, one analyst I spoke with seems to think that the biggest price hikes in electronics will be behind us soon, this initial wave of price hikes. The bad news, however, is that prices are only expected to increase further, probably not as dramatically as we'll see in this initial wave, but they are expected to continue increasing. And there's no short-term fix on the horizon. And that's because there's only 3 companies that make most of the memory that powers all of the computers in the world. And those 3 companies have been flooded with demand for data center buildouts, as you mentioned. And simply put, it just takes time to create new factories. That's what's happening now. But that kind of project doesn't happen overnight, especially because this type of manufacturing that's required to make these chips is a really nuanced and complicated process. It's some of the most, one analyst I spoke to called it the most complex manufacturing process on Earth. So this can't happen overnight. And at the same time, there's a chance that demand for AI could continue to just grow until that point. So there's no near-term fix. But for consumers that are in the market for a new laptop, a new game console, the advice that I've been hearing is you should buy now before prices get too much higher. They're probably not going to come down anytime soon. And if you have purchased something recently, take good care of it. Make sure you can hold on to it for a long period of time. And if you are shopping for something and you want a little bit of a discount, try looking at the secondhand market. There's a lot of refurbished programs out there where devices perform pretty much like new, and you can get them for a little bit cheaper.
I guess, and thank you. I mean, that's good advice from the experts on what we should be thinking about buying wherever we live in the world, be that in the States or around the world. And this is a sort of global phenomenon, I guess. The other issue, of course, has been the supply chain hit that we have seen on the stuff that goes into these chips with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And frankly, the supply chain sort of hit that has come off the back of that that resonates. It doesn't surprise me to a degree that we are seeing a bit of inflation out there. Is that also something to be wary of, given that we're not quite sure what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz at this point?
Yeah, that's certainly a factor here, and that has a trickle-down effect that definitely impacts supply chains globally. And I think that's another big factor in this as well that makes it difficult to predict exactly when prices are going to change and how they're going to change and how long this shortage is going to last. And another thing I've been hearing that throws a wrinkle in this as well, speaking of supply chain nuances, is that even when prices for memory come down, we might not see that actually reflected in consumer products for a long time, possibly around a year, one analyst told me. And that's because there's a gap in time from when these companies actually pay for the memory and when that memory is then incorporated into the products that you see on your store shelves. So there's a lot of factors here. As you mentioned, there's the supply chain as it is, there's what's going on around the world, and then of course there's the amount of time it takes to just put up these new factories, and then of course the other X factor of how AI demand is going to grow.